biggest challenges for anybody here, and ever since the advent of social media, is styling yourself. And styling when you are at office, styling when you're at home, styling when you're going to college, styling when you want to chill with your friends. Everything is becoming more and more complicated as the world is coming together through social media. And now, however you appear in front of people, that sets up an image of yours which may be there for a very long time. And also, it is said that the first impression is your last impression. So, styling becomes a very, very important part for, I think, everybody now, for personal reasons or for professional reasons. And today, we have got an expert on this field, Hina Parimu, and she's a professional stylist. So she has a work experience as a fashion stylist and an educator for more than 20 years. And today she's with us, and we would be sharing some very important aspects on this whole idea of styling. So welcome, Hina, on my channel.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Hina, tell me one thing. The first question is, what is basically, how do you define styling?
That's a good question. I think it's something a lot of Indians ask like all the time. So where a fashion designer's work ends is where a stylist's work actually begins at the end of the day. You know, fashion designers create these brilliant pieces. I always like to call them puzzles.
Okay.
They create pieces of puzzles and we put the puzzle together.
Okay.
Is what we are. So when it comes to creating an entire look based on a briefing provided or maybe whatever the client requires it to be, you know, as a stylist, the person goes out and sources it for the person.
Yeah.
And again, it could be someone, a stylist working in a magazine, you know. So I like to call ourselves storytellers and people who kind of put an entire puzzle piece, a fashion puzzle together and creating in one entire ensemble.
All right. So this is styling from a professional definition, like as a profession.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And what about personal styling?
Personal styling is, again, it's actually no different because you have this entire, your wardrobe is a puzzle. So you do have to put things together every single day. You're problem solving every single day. It's a very informed decision. आज मेरे को ये पहनना है, कल मेरे को ये पहनना है. Something is telling you to do that.
Correct.
Right? If you're going for a formal, let's say, interview.
Yeah.
The way you dress yourself is going to be very different from, let's say, if I see you a year after in that same office.
Yeah.
It's going to be extremely different.
So according to you, so you have worked with so many clients, what are the general principles for Indian youth when they are appearing for an interview? And let's say it's a semi-formal interview, not a very formal interview, but when they are actually going to their recruiter's office for interview. So what would be your word of advice for the young girls?
For young girls, I think, again, for me personally, styling is something which is very subjective as well. It really depends on their personality. When I am interviewing somebody, and specifically, let's say, younger women who come up, you know, sit next to me, it always helps to not get distracted by what they're wearing necessarily. So it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, post you getting the job or you getting whatever you're applying for, you can be whoever you want. But on the day of the interview, I actually would like to focus on you, what you're saying. You know, so be careful about the colors you wear. Be careful about the silhouettes you wear. If it's, again, this is very subjective to where you're applying for, like you said, semi-formal. If it's a completely formal space, then of course there you have to wear very muted colors and you have to think about these things. But it's, again, it's.
And when you say muted colors, so what are those colors?
When I refer to muted colors, see, colors always and always are excellent triggers for emotions for anybody. So if I'm sitting next to someone who's wearing, let's say, complete black on black, and they've applied for, let's say, a creative director position in any brand. And I have somebody who sits next to me, let's say, wearing very toned down pastels. You know, pastel, let's say, lavender of sorts. Again, not a very flashing color, but a very soothing color. So my body language in front of that person and the other person are going to be very different. The other person might come across a little more as a management student. Fashion is also performance. Okay, fashion is performance art, styling is performance art. So when you're going for an interview, depending on who you're going to meet, you need to dress the act as well.
Okay, so you're saying the way you dress up, you are actually somewhere subtly controlling the
Who's
emotion
doing
of the
that?
other person.
Definitely. I always say this to our students. How many of you have heard this from your parents घर पे that मेहमान आ रहे हैं घर के कपड़े बदल दो? What are these घर के कपड़े? What message are you giving them when they see you in this? God forbid if they see you in this घर के कपड़े.
Yeah,
You might not be lazy, but according to your parents, you're coming across as that,
got that.
right? So fashion and psychology are very closely linked.
Got that.
So this is pretty much one of my most common advices. Like it's a very no-brainer for me.
So you're saying muted colors?
Muted colors, again, depending on what the job is.
Okay.
Where are you going for an interview? If you're going in a very formal organization,
Yeah.
where you're going to meet business people and you want to be taken seriously, the kind of silhouettes you would wear would be sharp. The kind of colors you would be wearing would be very sharp. For example, black, dark, even if you're wearing blue,
Yeah.
let's say the darkest possible indigo colors, right? So, but if you're applying for a fashion college or a fashion anything organization,
Yeah.
you can still play with elements of who you are and what you want to project yourself as.
Got that. So, and over years, are you seeing there is a change in the way industry is responding to how a interviewee should be wearing their clothes?
Definitely. I can talk about my industry more than any other. I don't think it would be fair to comment on anybody else's industry.
Yeah.
We do see a big change in that. I wouldn't say, although there are some stereotypical ideologies that are still latched on and stuck.
Yeah.
You know, for example, if I've heard conversations where I've seen quite senior people saying, if the girl has come in wearing a crop top, and this is the first time I'm meeting her, I've already set an impression about
Okay.
her.
Okay.
So things like that. There
So,
are things.
so what does a crop top do in the scene
In an interview,
psychologically?
psychologically, perhaps it really depends. See, one of the problems also that is there is the culture, the person who's interviewing you.
Yeah.
You know, body, beauty, all these things are so subjective and they're very culturally inclined.
Yeah.
Whilst it might not be offensive to me, it might be offensive to my grandfather if he's interviewing you,
Yeah.
right? So you really have to understand who is the other person sitting next to you.
Correct.
That's very, very important. I always tell young kids, before going to an interview, please research the person who's going to be sitting next to you.
Okay.
Check their background, check their work experience.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn.
Definitely. And LinkedIn has made it so easy, internet
Correct.
overall.
Correct.
So it always helps. It always helps you to, because you don't want to come across, and first impression, unfortunately, is the last impression. In most of the interviews, people
Yeah.
don't waste time
Yeah.
at all, especially if you're going in, say, even if you're going to interview for e-commerce organizations and where the work pressure is loads of applicants. People don't have time.
Okay. So that is that glancing.
Yes. So that first impression you have to, now does having or making a first impression mean that you have to be completely Met Gala? No. No, you have to understand the subtle bit without actually compromising on who you are as a person as well. You love wearing crop tops? Brilliant. Maybe don't wear it for the interview because you don't know who the other person is. And they are going to invest in you.
Okay.
So you have to give them faith that I will represent your company or you.
Oh.
So
the larger game is
Yes.
that you are becoming part of their brand,
definitely.
and they want to also see you visually.
Definitely.
Do you resonate with that
Absolutely.
brand aesthetic that they have?
Absolutely. One being that, and of course, see, if I'm interviewing, whenever I interview any of my assistants, I know if you do become my assistant, there are going to be times where you might be left alone at a shoot while I'm at another shoot.
Correct.
And I need to know that you are going to handle it with the best decorum, best behavior. I don't get any complaints about any kind of anything. Absolutely.
Got that.
So if I'm investing in you, I need to know that as well.
Okay.
So if you're going for an interview, part of that is your responsibility as well. Because you can't really blame somebody for saying, I am having a difficult time believing
Yeah.
what you're saying because it doesn't match this,
Got that.
right?
Got that.